Uh, Hello? Okay. Okay. I just wanted to be rest assured that we've not started.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How are
Waiting for you. Fine, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
So if we are ready, I'm ready. So
All right,
that
sir.
we don't keep the stakeholders waiting.
All right, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We want to welcome you again to another exciting section of our taxpayer engagement webinar series. And today we shall be looking at the new VAT filing processes on tax promas. And change, they said, is the only constant thing. According to Jack Ware, that is the CEO of General Electric, he says that if the rate of change outside the organization is greater than the rate of change inside the organization, that the end is in sight. That is why in FRS, we are constantly improving all our processes with a view to serving our taxpayers better. Today, we shall be looking at the introduction of the new VAT filing process on tax promas. The concerns and taxpayers of are from taxpayers and stakeholders. We shall be taking the question and answer section, and I will have assembled the management team as a panelist to do justice to some of your concerns. On this note, I want to welcome the ECFRS, who is the #1 taxman in Africa, a game changer in tax administration. Out of your busy schedule, we want to appreciate you for joining us. So without much ado, I will call on the ECFRS to give us his keynote address where we commence the section. You're welcome, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. My colleagues at FRS, the coordinating directors, head of functions, and all FRS staff, tax consultants, taxpayers, and every other person on this call. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this taxpayer enlightenment webinar to address the concerns of our stakeholders and taxpayers over the new VAT filing processes on the TaxPro Max. This is the second webinar the service is hosting this year. The first touch on a similar subject, that is the appointment of VAT agents, as well as new features and improvement on our TaxPro Max, particularly on the one-click tax clearance model. Let me start by thanking you for your constant support to the service, which has been exhibited in diverse ways, including but not limited to filing your returns as at when due, paying taxes at the correct rates, adapting to our reforms and changes, sharing our concerns, your concerns with us, and commending us when we have done the right thing. I must say that our successes today are possible due to this symbiotic relationship that we share with you. Let me use this moment to offer my apology on behalf of the service to all stakeholders and taxpayers for the huge communication gap that is being experienced with the deployment of our TaxPro Max new model in respect of filing VAT and making VAT payment. While we did not do enough to communicate with you, we want to assure you that we made these changes in good faith and having three important objectives in mind. The first of the objective is to increase our taxpayers base. Two, to improve accountability of our VAT systems while increasing revenue for the Federation. Three, our intention is also not to make life difficult for you as our critical stakeholders, but to block glaring leakages in tax system using technology, which I want to remind our critical stakeholders, including all of you on this call, have advised us to do several during your engagement with us. Having said that, we wish to wholeheartedly acknowledge the feedback from all of you, particularly from those that have given us this feedback discreetly, and those that have shared their positions in the open. While we agree with you on some of the feedback, we have called for this interaction with you to address some of your concerns and request for your understanding with us as we deploy these innovative technologies for the common good of our nation. It is in fact based on the concerns you raise that we issued a public notice to provide you with some palliatives, particularly on penalties and interest for late filing and payment of every VAT obligation, extension of filing due date to 31st or to 30th April 2023 for filing April 2022 VAT returns, among others. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to provide us with further feedback so that we are guided and will be in a position to serve you better. I must reiterate that the FRS is a customer-centric institution. Our work here is strictly service, that is to serve the country and our citizens. We'll continue to engage with you at every point in time to hear and understand you better so that we can improve our service delivery to all critical stakeholders, including our number one customer, the taxpayer. Once again, I thank you for joining this webinar and look forward to a productive and impactful engagement. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, sir, the ECFRS, for that fatherly speech. Without much ado, our time is fast spent. We'll go straight to the business of the day. And I have the privilege and honor to invite the Coordinating Director, Digital Innovation and Support Group, Mrs. Chiaka Benobi, to take over from here, where she takes us through the introduction of the new VAT filing process on tax promise. You're welcome, ma'am.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
we're hearing you, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I thank ECFRS for honoring us with his physical presence for this meeting. We can't thank him enough for all that he's doing in supporting all our initiatives. So at this moment, we're having the introduction. Introduction really will be taken by Alaya. That's introduction of the input tax mechanism, credit mechanism, and how it works with on TaxPro Mass. I think thereafter, then I can present some of the issues and concerns that our taxpayers have raised. But having an understanding of the technical mechanism in applying the credits in TaxPro Mass will give us a better insight on what the solution is actually providing. Thank you. Alaya, you may take over from here, please.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, the CDs here present. Good morning, our esteemed taxpayers. You are welcome to today's webinar on the updated VAT filing. I'm going to be taking us through the step-by-step guide of the updated VAT filing on the TaxPro Mass. So here I'm going to log in as a taxpayer. Then I come to the taxes due to get the form to be filled. Where I have the VAT form. Then I have the sales schedules. Now I'm expected to download the sales schedules. However, I've done that. So I'm going to show us and explain to us what we are expected to do, because I think this is really causing a bit of, is bringing some concerns. Now on the schedule, if you note that we have like a legend where we have our VAT status column, which is this column here. It says 0 signifies
Alaya,
items that are vital.
the schedule. Please present the schedule properly. I think you have not shared your entire screen. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I shared my screen. Okay, sorry. Can we see the schedule now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
All right, please. Fine. So here I said we have under the VAT status column here, 0 is meant for VATable items, 1 is for 0 rated items, while 2 is for VAT exempted items. And under the first one, under the first column, we have the beneficiary name, which is the customers. Now, this will only apply to those who deal with corporate entities who are not the final consumers of what you sell. Now, this is a taxpayer that is filing his own returns based on his own sales for the previous months. Now, you are expected to fill in the name of the tax of your customers, who in this instance is either a corporate taxpayer or an enterprise taxpayer. Then the TIN of the taxpayer is expected to be provided, the item that was purchased, the costs of that item, how much did you sell it to the person? And when you are putting this cost, it is VAT exclusive. This is not the cost plus the VAT, rather the cost minus the VAT. Then the item description, then the VAT status. As we know, 2 here signifies VAT exemption. And we know that baby products are exempted by the provisions of the law. Now, you're going to fill all this. Now, I also want us to notice this. I put in a Red Cross here. A Red Cross Society is an NGO provided services in the humanitarian services. And when the law provides that when you sell for those in that categories of taxpayers, it is charged as 0. That's why you have it as 0, as 1. Then every other items here, they are all VATable items. And that is why the code here is 0. Now let's notice this last one. Now this is for your customers who are final consumers, who are not in any way going to claim any inputs on what they have purchased from you. So for example, if I'm a hotelier and I do not do transactions with any people coming to my hotel to lodge, which means at the end that those are final consumers. At that point, I am not entering in any details of the individuals that come into my hotel. Rather, I have them as my customers. The TIN is going to be 0. I have it as my sales. The cost of the services or the goods that I've sold to them, then goods sold or services provided, then since it is vatable, you put it as 0. Now, having done that, then you come onto the system and select that template which you have filled and upload it onto the system. I will say the system is going to do validation of all the records that you have imputed. So having done that, you click on upload, then I believe you can see my screen, right?
What part of the screen do you want us to see now?
Can you see it now?
Yes, we can
Yes.
see it now.
All right, fine. I think I need to just do that again so that we'll see how that occurs. So I come here and choose my file, which is the template which I've earlier filled, and I upload my template. Please note that the template takes into account maximum of 1,000 records at So you can see that the items populated on that template are now brought onto the system. And one other thing the system does is it validates the TIN provided. If you remember in our templates, what I had was XYZ Limited, ABC Limited. But the system is going to check who actually owns the TIN and returns the value, returns the name of the taxpayer. So on this interface, if we notice that there's any error on what we have uploaded, now assuming it is just about 2 or 3 of them, you can simply remove any of them. Then you go back to the template, you correct the error there, then you can upload again. However, if you need to take out the entire record from the template, all you need to do is just to click on reset and the entire record there will be taken out. Then you can make your necessary adjustment on the schedule again and re-upload them. So having done this, you can also see that the system has given us a summary of what is in the template. What is vatable is 64 million here. What is zero rate is this amount. Items that are exempted are this amount. Then the total is what we have here at 70.2 million. So having done that, then we'll click on what? Naira, then we proceed. Now, at this point, where we have purchases, now I am an enterprise or a corporate, and I have also purchases from other persons. And those other persons or those other taxpayers are going to file their own returns too, putting in my own details as part of their own schedule. When they do that, I am going to see all my purchases here so that I can claim the input I have suffered on those purchases. And it is only at this point that we can validate and verify the input that the taxpayers have suffered. And when that is done, you claim the input VAT on your purchases, then we proceed on that. Once you do that, you proceed. Now, the next step is the sales adjustments that we have. When there are transactions that results into return inwards on the returns that have already been filed, then because after you must have submitted your returns, every item on that schedule is going to be given a code. And when you have that code, that you go to the calculated assessment and pick the code. So the code is what you bring onto here and populate. Once you bring it here, you search for the item and you can make the necessary adjustments on that sales if there are returns inward. Otherwise, if you do not have any item of adjustment, or you do not have any situation where you add adjustments, you just proceed. Then it takes you to this VAT form itself, which we are used to anyway, and we can see that from the schedule, we have a total of 70,200,000, and the system is lessing the exempted item. Then we also it less the zero rates. Then if there are adjustments, because we didn't do any adjustments, you have your figure for adjustment. Then it computes what is what? Vatable. And the system computes the tax payable on that, which is the output VAT. Now, if you have also claimed your inputs, all the purchases and all will also be brought onto the form for the taxpayer to claim their inputs on their purchases. So, and then because we operate a cash basis, because of the provisions of the Finance Act, the amendment to the VAT Act, that VAT is now on cash basis and no longer on accrual, which simply means the taxpayer can only claim inputs on items or on purchases that have been disposed, that have been sold. So whatever your closing inventory is, we have a provision for that here. That is, purchases not really used in making vatable items. So you're going to put in your closing inventory in this line. Then we also have purchase imports. If there are imports, we know that the Nigeria Customs Service is the agent that is collecting the VAT on imported items on behalf of the FIRs. So, but you are expected to declare the cost of your import so that you can be granted inputs on what you have imported. Say, for example, I have a 2 million imports for this period. So the system is going to grant me the VAT that I may have suffered from such imports, and it gives me the room to claim my inputs on that. So basically, the reason for the updates is for us to be able to verify and validate the inputs VAT claimable by our taxpayers. So having done that, the system is going to compute the necessary tax payable by deducting the inputs, the net inputs, or the total inputs from the total output, and it gives you the VAT payable. Now, because I'm filing a late return, the system also computes the LRP automatically. But if you file within your due date, within the due date, there is none, with the exception of what we currently have, which the chairman of the FIS just announced, and there's been a public notice to that effect, that for the current period of filing, there's been an extension, and there's currently a waiver of LRP interest and penalty. So once we're done with all this, what we do is to click on declaration. Please, at this note, first you need to see what the system has computed as your liability. Now, if that is not what you had earlier prepared in your own books to pay, obviously, probably there's been an error in the schedule that you have filled. You can always go back there and correct those errors. Now, but if everything is fine and is intact, the system is further prompting you that please, you should check the amount to be paid is this amount, which is the VAT liability. Otherwise, if the amount is not correct, please do not submit, which simply means you can go back to all the schedules, probably at a particular line item you wanted to put, say, 11 million, and you ended up putting 1.1 million. That could happen to anyone. So you can go back to that schedule and you can amend the figures that you have imputed. Having satisfied with the records on the form and you are okay, all you need to do is to click on submit. As you submit, the system takes you to where to make the payment. Then you can use any of the payment gateway that we have, then generate your payment reference number and proceed to payment. You have the option to either pay online or to go and pay at the bank. If you choose to pay online, you generate your payment reference number, then you proceed to go and pay online. Otherwise, you generate the code, and then you go and pay at the bank. Sorry, I'm currently on the test environment, and so I'm not going to be making any payments, and that's why I'm not generating the payments. So this is the walkthrough of the updated VAT filing. On the form, we've also made provisions for the videos, for the step-by-step guide. So at your liberty, at your convenience, you can watch these videos at every stage of your filing. there is an explanation, a detailed explanation on how you go about filling those schedules and to do your filing. So this is the walkthrough session. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alaya, for walking us through the new VAT filing process on TaxPro. At this junction, I will call on board the Coordinating Director, Digital Innovation Support Group, to address the concerns from taxpayers and stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, just bear with us. The coordinating director has a system glitch. He's trying to reconnect with us. So in a jiffy, she will be with us. Please bear with us. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Sorry, the CD is having a challenge with our system, and they're trying to they're trying to connect right now. So just be patient, please. But just to add to what I had earlier said,
Mr. Alaya,
yes, ma'am.
I suggest that while we're waiting for the DG CDDS DIST
Yes,
to
ma'am.
hook on, there are some questions in the chat Q&A.
Okay.
Maybe you can speak to some of them. For example, the taxpayers are asking if they've already paid the penalties already. What happens? Some have already filed late for this April, and they had penalty there already. So what's the plan? Since we said we are giving them a palliative.
I think I will allow the management team to talk about that, because the
Okay,
announcement
can you
came in
walk
yesterday.
through the audience how a service company like a bank would file their own? Because somebody asked that question. I think that's something you can handle.
Yes, please. I'm
All
going
right.
to I'm going to do that right now.
Okay. So you just retake the presentation, but you talk through how it's exactly. Thank you.
Definitely, I'll do that. All right, please. First of all, one of the areas that we didn't see while I was doing the presentation is the area where the taxpayer is actually going to claim their inputs. I believe we can see my screen right now, right?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
All right. So we can see this particular taxpayer. This is at the point of purchase right now. And we'll see where the inputs, it means this taxpayer, as Ziza integrated, has done business or has made purchases for Furame Energy, and Furame has remitted has also reported that sales. So all he needs to do is just to click on input here and claim its input VAT from that. All right, having done that, I'm also going to be showing us how does the banks or those who provide services alone, how do they file their own returns, since the people they provide services to are the final consumer in this respect. Now, at this point, you do not need to fill all these lengthy, or what do you call it, the schedule. All you need to do is take out the entire records here. Then it means you're filling only one. Your sales or your customers is who you have done business with. Customers. I think I also highlighted in the last rule of the last one I did. Then at this point, you are not putting anybody's team, because nobody is claiming any input on the services that you have provided. All you do is put 0 on it. Then it is services that you provide. What is the cost? You put your entire revenue or your entire turnover. If it's 100 million, you put 100 million here. If it's a billion, you put a billion there. Then what type of service do you provide? Is it banking? Is it professional service? Professional service. If it's a professional service, you put professional service under the item descriptions. Then since if it is vatable, you put 0 at the end. Once you're done with that, you just save, then upload. And that's the way you fill your own schedule. You do not necessarily have to provide the TIN of anybody you deal with, since they are final consumers and they have no input to be claimed on those kind of services. We know inputs are claimed basically on goods, not on goods, not on services. So this is just the way to go with the templates when it comes to providing services. Or even if it is goods you are selling to consumers, to the final consumers, this is the way you treat it. You are not going to be putting the names of the individual that walks into your businesses to either get a service or purchase an item from you, who is the final consumer in this respect. You only need to put in the name, the TIN of the enterprises or the corporate bodies who are also going to be reselling the items that they are buying from you. Say, for example, a retailer that is buying from a wholesaler, or a wholesaler buying from a manufacturer, because we all understand that VAT is a multi-stage tax. So at every point where at the point of the producer or the manufacturer selling into the wholesaler, is going to be compelled to do this, or it needs to fill the records of those who have purchased from it, so that they can also get the input which they have paid. As we'll understand that when there's a transaction, somebody's sales is another person's purchases, and what you are paying as an output to someone, or what you are collecting as your own output, is somebody else's input. That is, if that other party is not the final consumer. So I think this should address that area where you do not deal with either when you do not deal with corporate, or you deal with individuals, or even when you deal with corporate, but it is in form of services, which does not require that there's going to be an input on that service. So thank you.
All right, thank you. There's another question you might just answer too.
Okay.
They said, I think you have answered it, but just for emphasis, said, what
Yes.
of the customer that we don't know whether they are final consumer and we don't have their TIN? What do we do?
Okay, what we have done on the system is to make provisions for taxpayers to be able to update even their schedule after submitting the filing. Now, if you do not have their TIN, you do not know whether they are final consumers, simply put 0 in the TIN, in the field provided for TIN. Put customers in the field provided for the beneficiary name. Now, if that customer eventually comes back to let you know that I am not the final consumer, I'm also reselling, and probably they'll find out at the point of filing their own returns and realize that they do not have the input that they have suffered. Then when you come back to me as your supplier, then I can update your record on the template again subsequently, and you will have your inputs to be claimed. And the way we've also done the way this input works now is that you can use it to offset your subsequent liability. It's going to be available for you. I believe that answers the question.
Yes, thank you for that. Another question, you may have answered it, but I think it's also good to answer it for emphasis, because it's an issue which a lot of taxpayers, especially in oil and gas, have, and now by taxpayers that banks are withholding, which is that how do we file VAT that our customers deducted from source? So that's a question from one of the participants. So when VAT is deducted as source by oil and gas, by banks, now that we appointed them, by some of the telcos, how does the taxpayer now claim this?
Okay. How does the taxpayer claim the inputs or the VAT? Sorry, don't say input here. The VAT that has been deducted at source. Now, there's a provision on the TaxPro where both the MDAs, those in oil and gas, and the new agents who have just been appointed, that is the MTN, the Airtel, and the money deposit banks, there is a template for them to file in those, which is through the group taxes. And when they do the filing, they are going to be providing the details of every vendors that they have done business with, and the amount involved in that transaction, and the VAT on it that has been deducted. When they do this, now the taxpayer is going to have, all the taxpayer needs to do is just to declare his own turnover in that schedule. When you get into the VAT form, there is a field for deduction at source. And once the payment has been made by the agents that have deducted it, you will have those VAT as credits in there. You will have it as credits against.
If it doesn't come, what happens? Especially for MDAs, what happens?
It is expected that the MDAs actually files as well, just like every other agents. I know I'm not talking about the MDAs now.
No, the reason why MDAs are important is that it's one government to government, yeah? So
Yes,
how do we deal with that? If an MDA deducts from a construction company, and we are talking of large sums of money, and they haven't filed it, and then, you know, the company is stranded, basically. I mean, it's something to think about. Somebody has already asked that question, but we need to be able to deal with it, because we have very large deductions for the companies in the construction sector in particular. So we need to be able to make sure, both at the federal and at the state level. Remember, there are MDAs even at state that are doing all this. So all that needs to be addressed. You may not be able to answer it now, but
yes, I think we need to revisit that and see how we can deal with that in the event that the NDAs did not are yet to file.
Are yet to file, because the key issue is they are yet to file, and because of the sums of money that might be involved. So I think we should keep that. This is one of the concerns that this particular taxpayers have been putting in there. Then the other issue, which I mean is for us to internally again to go back with, is to prepare something, which I think we are doing, but if taxpayer services is in this meeting, one of the concerns raised in the Q&A is we should do a kind of something to educate the taxpayers beyond what we have done now. And I'm sure we are doing it, but the taxpayer services, please take note, work with VAT department and the TaxPro team and put together something that the taxpayers can lay their hands on, either on the website or other portals that we have. So there are other questions that I'm looking through to see if there are some that you can answer, or others that are on the call can answer, while we're waiting for the CDDSIG to resolve, to be able to get back. We will not be able to answer specific taxpayer questions for reason of confidentiality. So in the Q&A, please don't ask specific questions. If our taxpayer services is here, please provide the details of how taxpayers can call our call center and get these issues resolved for them individually. We can't address individual issues here. This is a public forum. So for confidentiality reasons, I don't think we cannot do that, yeah? So Alaya, if you have our contact center, or you can take us to the website of FIRS and show how the taxpayers can contact our contact center and get their various queries resolved that are very specific, not generic. Can you do that?
Yes, I'm on it.
All right, thank you.
So one other thing we've provided on the TaxPro is the taxpayer being able to watch the step-by-step guide of how to do the filing. I'm trying to find the contact center number. Yes. You can all go to the FIRS website. That's www.firs.gov.ng. There we'll find the phone numbers and the email addresses where you can contact us, where you can send in your individual queries into and make proper inquiry. Okay, let me share my screen so that we'll see our phone numbers now. Okay, so here we are. We have our phone numbers here, where you can contact us on. You can also chat us here. You leave your name, your email address, the subject of your inquiry, and put in your questions. Then you submit. Somebody's going to respond to you on that. So this is the FIRS website. You can always go there to get more information, not only on TaxPro, not only the phone numbers. If you need information about automatic or exchange of information and all of that, if service, we have tax resources and all that. You can find more information on our website. And the website is firs.gov.ng. Somebody is asking question on the chat that we operate in hospitality industries. How will it be possible to upload our revenue in pieces when we have thousands of transactions, a working guest? I think I've spoken about this before. When you have working guests who come to your properties, all you need to do, you don't need to put in the details of every individual that come into your property to lodge. All you need to do is for the month, your revenue is 10 million naira, or your revenue is 100 million naira. You're not putting the details of the taxpayer. On that schedule where you have the beneficiary name, all you put there is customers. Where you have the TIN, all you do is put 0 there. Where you have the item, you put it as your sales, where you have your, or turnover, where you have your item description, you put it as hospitality, that is sales from what you do. Well, sales was just your turnover for the month. Then you put 0 under the VAT column. Then you are good putting the entire turnover as a one figure. You are not putting it individually because one person came in and left, another person came in and left. No, you're not going to be doing that. I hope that answers your questions for that. Okay, somebody asked a question that I can't reverse. Like you said, we'll not be able to provide specific things, but somebody is saying he has filed by the 21st, even though he's unable to claim his input. Because of the period of filing, you can approach your local tax office and they are going to address that for you. Some other persons are asking questions about CIT. What we are doing here is the VAT, please. Okay, somebody raised a very valid one. It says we have issues on an error that pops up. Sellers cannot be buyer. Okay, which has made us unable to file our VAT. You see, when taxpayer ABC Limited is filing its own return, in that schedule, you cannot be this buyer again in that schedule because people buy from you, you buy from other persons too. So there is no way if you put in your own details there, I am ABC Limited and I am filing my VAT returns. And in the schedule contains people who have purchased from me, who will be XYZ. It can't be me again. So if I'm putting ABC Limited again, the system is going to throw that out because that is you. It's the same you. You can't be the buyer and the seller at the same time.
Some taxpayers are still asking about maybe they didn't see the contact center details that you provided.
Okay, let me bring that up again then.
Yeah. And whether it is 24/7 or not.
Okay,
We need to answer that, yeah?
that's fine. So here we have the contact center numbers. You can call us on any of these numbers. And the calling period is actually from 8 to, it's not 24 hours, it's the working period, 8 to 5 p.m., please.
Monday to Friday, yeah?
Monday to Friday.
Keep it there for a few seconds so that they can see it. But anyway, just type into firs.gov.ng. There are lots of information there.
Yes.
So taxpayers can go to firs.gov.ng and just play around. They will find lots of information. And if they are not still clear, the numbers are there, call, and somebody will respond as well. Do we have an email address? I thought we have some kind of help desk email.
Yes, we have helpdesk at firs.gov.ng. And the email is helpdesk@firs.gov.ng. Let me see if we have that here. Or simply send a mail to helpdesk, HELPDESK @firs.gov.ng. You can send mails to it. We'll respond to it as well. You can send mail to it 24/7.
I see that the collated challenges are being zoomed. Does that mean that I should start my own presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon, our noble taxpayers. Good afternoon, colleagues online, and all the stakeholders. I greet you. My name is Chiaka. I'm the Coordinating Director for Digital and Innovation Support Group. Since the launch of the new module, we have received a lot of feedback from our taxpayers and some of our consultants as well as staff themselves. We have tried to collate these feedbacks that we have received, which are more like issues and concerns that the stakeholders are having, into a table, and the number 13 for now, but most of them, the reason it's number 13 is because most of the issues being raised or concerns being raised are similar. So we looked for the similar ones and joined all of them together. So if you'll allow me to start with the first one, there are 13 of them. We may find most of them being repeated, but it's because there are some few items in them that are not exactly the same. So starting with the first issue on our list is that banks and telcos complained of the new system not being able to accommodate more than 1,000 transactions per schedule, as their transactions run into hundreds of thousands. Now, FRS response to that is that this understanding is not correct. And when we say that it is not correct, it's also based on some of the issues that EC had mentioned during his opening remark, that maybe we did not communicate enough. We're saying that TaxPro Max, as can be seen from the one of the telcos returns for March 2020, handled over 3,000 records, and a bulk amount of billions of naira is also paid. That we just encourage people to file. We also have data from the banks. Some of the banks have successfully filed, and their records run also into thousands of records. However, we suggest that a schedule of not more than 500 records should be maintained. And that is not to say that we cannot handle more than 500 records. The second concern raised was on withholding VAT. Vendors expressed concerns on input VAT on input tax claims, where there are delays in remittance by FRS agents, such as the telcos and the banks. Our response to that is that this may happen for the initial month, which is this month that we're dealing with last month's transactions, as the vendors will even be in a refund position should the agent make the payments. A workaround to this is an extension of the filing to the last day of the month to accommodate the taxpayers waiting for agents to make remittance. And this also is what has been done yesterday. The third issue is that importers who pay VAT at the ports may have to wait again, as there is no way to give them credit on TaxPro Max until integration to Nigerian customs is achieved. Again, this is a lack of information. We are currently collecting data from Nigerian Customs Service on a monthly basis and injecting same into TaxPro Max to provide input to those that VAT has been withheld by NCS while waiting for the seamless integration. Number 4, some said the requirements of manual evidence of remittance of input tax claims before clearing a return of a compliant taxpayer is unfair and not justified by law. We restate that we are going through an automation process that does not require any manual evidence of remittance of input tax claims. Evidence of remittance is automated. In addition, the law didn't say anywhere that FRS should give value when the revenue is not accounted for. It only made Another concern raised is that a change as monumental as this should have been properly communicated and taxpayers educated before implementation. Many complained FRS was resorting to fire brigade approach on tax matters not good for ease of doing business and economy, and amounts to killing the goose that lays the egg. I guess in the opening remark, the EC has already addressed this and apologized. One of such engagements is like this one that we're having today, and we continue to have them in addition to other avenues or other channels that we'll be exploring in order to engage the taxpayers. Another number 6 is that filing process could take days or weeks for taxpayer with hundreds of thousands of transactions with the new procedure, such as for the telcos and the banks. Again, this statement is not informed. We've also made a remarks about some of the banks and telcos having successfully filed their return when I mentioned the first issue. Number 7, it became apparent that VAT automation of banks, telcos, and other high consumption sectors is the best way to ease the filing process on the new VAT filing module, as this will automatically populate the schedules. We say this is noted and confirms that the VAT automation engagement is a step in the right direction. Number 8 is with regards to TIN for sales customers. The concern is that the platform requires that the sales schedule for the period showing customers' name and their respective TIN be uploaded before proceeding to the next filing stage. It is pertinent to inform the service that some ERP deployed across group of companies to manage day-to-day business activities does not compulsorily require each customer to obtain customer's TIN for the sale of our products. Considering that we currently do not have TIN for all our customers, the capturing of this information for all the thousands of customers across the group may be a Herculean task, as this is not totally within our control and may result in loss of revenue. Invariably, the customers may also not be able to get a claim for the VAT if uploaded without the TIN. FIRS response: the provision of taxpayer identification number of customers is in line with the provision of Section 13A of the VAT Act. 13A of the VAT Act. And then, where the TIN of the customer is not available, the taxpayer can simply enter 0, which will enable the taxpayer to file and pay. The taxpayer can update at any time the TIN of any customer whose TIN was not supplied during filing and payment, which will enable them to get their corresponding qualifying input VAT upon updates of the TIN where necessary. Then upload of monthly customer schedule with TIN. To implement the new requirements for customer TIN on sales records for the monthly VAT filing, the ERP for the sales process will require some updates, which may take some time, as this will depend on how prompt we're able to get the information from all our customers before we can upload the TIN. Thus, there will be need for the service to avail our various companies in the group some time to gather the TIN and effect the changes in alignment with the FIRS requirements. Then FIRS responds that non-availability of TIN does not stop a taxpayer from filing and payment at any point in time. The sales schedule can be updated with the TIN of customers even after filing and payment. Request for TIN of customers is part of the statutory requirements for transacting on VAT-able goods and services. Please refer to Section 13A of the VAT Act. TIN is mandatory for all companies that transact in VAT-able goods and services. Then the 10th concerns is with regards to the disabling of the input VAT claim. Inability to claim input VAT due for the month, since we do not have access to confirm that the suppliers have remitted the VAT paid on our purchases to the FIRS. The fact that majority of our companies in the group are manufacturing entities makes this procedure punitive to the companies. Our major raw materials are imported and VAT is paid to customs at the point of importation. Waiting for customs to credit each company concerned might take a long time, and this implies that companies will continue to have huge cash flow impact on their business operation. We also observed that our respective TaxPro Max dashboard, that no purchase records were found, hence the inability to claim the required input VAT on the purchases used in the direct production of the output VAT, resulting from the revenue for the period as required in Section 17 of the VAT Act. Some of our entities have input VAT to be claimed from purchases made long before this new requirement, which the vendor may have filed in previous months. Such credits will not be accessible if we must go by this new requirement. Similarly, some entities apply the consumption rule and will have input VAT claimable sitting in their accounts based on the inventory balance in the books. The inventory may relate to purchases made months ago that has not been used for production. FIRS response to that is, qualifying input VAT from domestic purchases is to be automatically granted based on the amount remitted to FIRS by suppliers of VAT-able goods and services. 2, qualifying input VAT from previous months, which ought to be used for the filing of current months, which is March, returns were made manually during the filing of February VAT returns, and any unabsorbed VAT credits will automatically be made available during the current month's VAT filing. Import VAT paid to the Nigerian Customs Service is claimable on the system through line 130, that is purchased imports, which follows from the records of Nigerian Customs Service. Input VAT on purchases is granted based on the portion of purchases used to make vatable supplies only, while any portion not used in making a vatable supply in any month is to be kept as closing stock, that is inventory, and its attributable qualifying inputs will be pending until when actual supply is made by the taxpayer. Next concern is that the FRS Act empowers the FRS to carry out such activities that are necessary or expedient for the full discharge of its function. However, such activities must be consistent with the law. The VAT Act is very specific on when a taxpayer can claim its allowable input VAT. This is not dependent on whether the supplier has remitted the output VAT collected from the taxpayer or the failure of the supplier to insert zero under the beneficiary things column in the sales schedule, where the supplier does not know the thing. The input-output VAT recovery mechanism provided in section 17(1) of the VAT Act as amended does not require the supplier to have remitted the input VAT collected as a prerequisite for the customer to claim allowable input VAT on purchases in any month. To the extent that the customer has paid over the input VAT to the supplier, it should claim such allowable input VAT in that month, in line with the provisions of the law. However, it seems that the FRS, through the input VAT credit mechanism, has shifted the responsibility for ensuring compliance with timelines for VAT remittances to the customers, which is inconsistent with the provisions of the extant laws. It is imperative, therefore, that the FRS review the operation of input VAT credit mechanism to ensure that it is not imposing additional obligations on the taxpayers where none exist under the law. If these updates are not modified, there will be significant delay in the filing of monthly returns and resultant decline in VAT payment. FRS gives its response as 1, the VAT Act is clear about the duties of both the purchaser and supplier. The purchaser is expected to pay to the supplier the tax on goods purchased in line with section 12 of VAT Act, while the supplier is expected to issue to the purchaser a tax invoice in line with the provisions of section 13A of the VAT Act and remit the taxes so collected to the service in line with the provisions of section 14. Based on the input and output mechanism, VAT credits can only be granted based on the VAT charged, collected, and remitted by taxable persons, as one customer's sales is another customer's purchases, vice versa. The VAT Act, section 7(2), has empowered the service to do all is deemed necessary and expedient for the assessment and collection of the tax, and account also for all amounts so collected by all agents of collection. The 12th issue that we recorded is that the input VAT credit mechanism may have significant cash flow impact on taxpayers whose output VAT are withheld as source, particularly the FMCG companies, large manufacturing companies and suppliers to companies operating in the oil and gas industry, banks, MTN PLC, Airtel, and government ministries, statutory bodies and agencies. For example, in order to claim allowable input VAT on monthly purchases, the input VAT credit mechanism requires that the supplier must have remitted the VAT collected on the supplies before the credit becomes available to the customers. While the logic behind the updates may seem reasonable, as suppliers are expected to remit the VAT collected from their customers on a monthly basis. However, this is not always the case. The reality is that some suppliers, based on their business exigencies, may not always remit the VAT collected from their customers on monthly supplies as and when due. The implication of restricting the available input VAT amount to the amount of VAT remitted by the supplier is that the affected customers will be required to make additional cash payments in such months that the suppliers fail to remit the VAT collected to the FIRS. FIRS responds that Section 13, FIRS responds that appointed agents for VAT deduction at source, in line with Section 13 of VAT Act, will be held responsible for non-remittance of withheld VAT, and they will bear the burden of any accruable interest and penalty, as the duty to remit such taxes rests on them and not the supplier. The law also makes it mandatory for appointed agents to remit the VAT so deducted on a monthly basis, and failure to do so will result to sanctions against the agent. And finally, the input VAT credit mechanism does not consider the allowable input VAT paid to Nigerian Customs Service on imported goods. Section 17(1) of the VAT Act, as amended, defines allowable input VAT to include the tax on goods purchased or imported directly for resale. The omission of the VAT paid to the NCS on imported goods in the input VAT credit mechanism in the VAT credit mechanism feature is a significant oversight which must be promptly addressed to ensure that the operation of the system is consistent with provisions of the law. Well, I'm sure with the presentation that was made as the introduction of this feature, this concern is no longer applicable, be that as it may. We are getting import VAT that were paid to customs on a monthly basis, and this is claimable on the system through line 130, which is purchase imports, which follows from the records of Nigerian Customs Service. So that's all the concerns and issues we have received and recorded. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. So we may go back to question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that wonderful presentation. First of all, we want to apologize to all our participants for that system glitch. It's due to network problem. At this junction, we will now be taking question and answer sessions. If you have questions, you can just signify by raising up your hands. I will take those questions, please. Question and answer section.
You have to do the control. Yes. Wait, let me see.
Okay. Anthony Yesufu, can you ask your question if you are there? Anthony Yesufu, please ask your question. All right, Ikechukwu Odo.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the presentation and the responses you provided. If you don't mind me making a request, can you put up the Excel that shows the questions? Because I want to make some comments on questions and responses to question 11, 12, and question 11 and 12 that the CD talked about. If you don't mind, so that everybody can see what I'm talking about. On issues 11 and 12. If you don't mind putting up the presentation. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Save time to save time. Why not just go straight to your question?
Yeah, because I need Mr. Dick, I need to see the question so that I can respond to them. Because okay, the question 11 talked about thank you very much. Question 11 talked about the inputs outputs recovery mechanism, what the section 17 of the VAT Act talked about. Now the point there, the FRC's response to say that both the supplier, yes, the supplier and the purchaser, they have obligations. Now the law didn't say that for the purchaser to be able to claim the input VAT, I must wait until the supplier has made remittances. Now I have made a payment on the purchases I have made. I have complied with the provisions of the law. That my supplier did not remit the tax as at when due should not preclude me from benefiting from the provisions of the law, which is that I can claim the input VAT because I can demonstrate to the FRS to say, see, I was charged 107.5% on the invoice, and my bank statement shows that I paid that value to my supplier, which means that I'm entitled to the VAT because the VAT input, unfortunately, is not the burden of the supplier. It is the tax of the purchaser who is interested in claiming that input VAT. So I think that is something that the board should look at again on how this works. Because like the question says that it appears that burden to ensure compliance by the supplier has been moved to the purchaser. So every month, if I make purchases and pay, I'll have to follow up with my supplier to say, please ensure that you file it so that I'll be able to have access to my credit, which I don't think is what the law is trying to tell you, what the law is saying. I think that's something that needs to be looked at again. And I think it flows also into the second one, which is that I do not agree with FRS's response to say that it's only when that credit has been done that a purchaser would have access to that credit, or when the VAT rather has been remitted, that a purchaser would have access to that credit. I don't agree with that conclusion because yes, everybody has their rules to play. By saying that on question 11, to say that yes, that the supplier would be exposed to penalty and interest, which is okay. But how do you now deal with the consent? How do you now deal with the consent of the purchaser, which is that how do I have access to my credit, irrespective of how you penalize my supplier for late filing? How do I have access to my credit? So that I am not, sorry, there are people that are talking, so that I am not made to pay additional fees. Because what it means is that I would have paid the VAT, input VAT, over to my supplier, but if the supplier...
Is my name is Aperi.
Mr. Yesup, you're talking. Sorry, please, can you mute? If I paid the supplier the input VAT as the law required, because they issued me a VAT invoice, if the supplier failed to remit that VAT to the FRS as required by the law, what it means is that I'll have to pay out of pocket again for that same input VAT and wait until the supplier has made the payment. How do FRS do that? And if it happens, how do I get a refund? Thank you very much.
Hello. Hello.
Go ahead, Madam.
Yeah, sorry. Hi. Good afternoon. And just to because you're going to be responding to the same things that Mr. Ikechukwu has mentioned. To add some things to what he has said. So somebody asked a question in the schedule, I think it was number 12, around cash flow impact to the customer. And the FIRS did not address that in its response to show how the taxpayer is supposed to, how we're going to deal with the fact that we're paying twice to the FIRS. We're funding the FIRS, even though the FIRS says in the preceding month, if the person has paid, you take the credit. How can I guarantee how much my supplier will pay to the FIRS when the VAT Act has asked me to pay to the FIRS? Now, I was listening to the objectives by the chairman when this session started, and he said something about widening the tax base. And that's fair enough on the part of the FIRS. We're all Nigerians. It's one country we have to protect. So if you want to widen the tax base and indeed, just have more people in the tax net, we will support you because we believe that these monies will be used for all of us, right? Now you are doing that, and at the same time, the machinery you are using to accomplish that purpose is suffering. So I will take a very, very typical example just from March 2023. I'm in a business where we were going to pay 2.5 billion in VAT, and we ended up paying almost 3 billion, approximately 3 billion naira. That 600 million is a lot for this business. It's how we will survive. And at the end of the year, still pay company income taxes. Why are we giving this money to the FIRS? Because a supplier has not paid. How is that our problem? Why don't you say instead, taxpayer, I want to help FIRS, right? Okay, upload your evidence of payment to these suppliers. We want to broaden the tax net. Let us see these people you are paying our VAT to. We will be happy to do that and provide you with the information to chase these persons and not ask us to pay. So in the TaxPro system, there's no system to even say, okay, this is the credit that has been allocated to this customer from what a good supplier has, done on TaxPro. So the remaining that you are claiming is what you've paid. Put it out there, get your VAT due, support what you are doing. We can provide supporting documents on TaxPro for the FIRS. What happens to the FIRS tax desk reviews? What happens to tax audits? Will you never do tax audits anymore? This is business money we are giving FIRS when we are not obligated to. It is very serious. And there are no thresholds for businesses. You're not even saying, oh, for these kinds of businesses, these materials, let there be a threshold. Nothing. Everybody just gets caught up. So please respond to Mr. Ikechuk's questions. They are very, very important to me. I don't know who he is, but he has pretty much captured this thing in as best as he could. And again, the presenter, the coordinating director said something about FIRS is engaging and whatnot. What's the essence of engagement? If you are not feeling the pain of the taxpayer, why are you engaging us? Why are we spending all this time when you're not listening to us? You can go and do 10 engagements per month, do sessions, do webinars. You're not listening. What then becomes the essence? That's my point.
Thank you, Madam Ngozi. I'll call on Madam Chaka to address those two questions. Question number 12 and 11.
I would address I will start with the final comments made by Madam. I'm sure you gave an introductory name, but I didn't get it, but at least this thing is clear, your submission is clear. Your final closing remark was that FIRS is not listening. So what is the point of the engagement? There was an engagement in Lagos, a stakeholder engagement in Lagos. I think it was on the 18th of April. And it was part of that engagement and the feedback that we got that triggered the current position of FIRS by extending the filing period to end of the month, midnight of 30th April, as well as waiving any penalty and interest that may have accrued due to the time elapsed. And again, reactivating the input VAT claim field for the claimable VAT that you want to do for this month, hoping that between now and the next filing period, you would have made all the adjustments that you have also informed us that you need to make to the system. So that's that just to confirm that we're listening. If we're not listening, we won't be in the position that we are today. And there really, you're
Okay,
right. There is no point. There is no point for engagement if you're not going to listen to the person that you're engaging. But you are
okay,
saying
thank
something.
you. Yes, please, so that we flow through very nicely. You've raised the point. I just want to address that point specifically. You said there was an engagement which affected certain actions, and I am saying those actions do not necessarily. So what happens is I get the credit in the next month, but my cash has gone out now. Why is FRS enjoying my money for 1 month? The money I'm using to pay salaries to do my business, a capital intensive business. So you get the overall picture. You address it in some sort of way that doesn't necessarily cover the gaps.
Okay.
Chiaka.
Sir.
My name is Ngozi, by the way, Miss Chiaka. You asked for my
Madam
introduction.
Ngozi, please. Hello. Okay.
Chiaka, let me appreciate the lady that is making comment. And to say that the issues you have discussed, just like Chiaka said, will be looked into. However, just to quickly remind all of us that the VAT regime we run in our country is such that suggests that if I have a transaction on the 1st of the day of April, the remittance of the VAT that I have taken on behalf of FIRS is not due until in about 60 days' time. So the federal government has always given us support that one we deduct because they don't want to have issues or create issues for you as far as cash flow is concerned. You should keep that money for probably up to 50, 60 days. So if this has created an issue for you, we have listened, we will do something about it. But to also remind all of us, because everybody pays tax, including myself, there is no shop that I will enter today to buy anything without paying VAT before I leave there. So we are all taxpayers. But as agent of collection, the reminder is that we are giving this money to keep, in some cases for over 60 days before we remit. So please, we have not, or we've noted what you have said, and we share with your pen, I will do something about it. But to also to remind us that the system run by FI, the laws are as not as punitive as it is being projected. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, Mr. FRS, for that quarterly intervention. We still keep more questions from our participants. Mr. Ikechukwu, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
You have asked, okay, you have asked questions, sorry. Abubakar Jose.
No,
Abubakar
I have
Jose,
already asked my questions, but I haven't got a response yet from Mrs. Chiaka.
Okay,
She only addressed the questions that Mrs. Ngozi asked following mine, but she has not addressed the comments I raised on the two issues, issue 12.
That's fine. Let me attempt to address Mr. Ikechukwu's feedback.
Thank
First,
you, ma'am.
you mentioned that we are transferring the responsibility of remitting the VAT collected
Ensuring
to the taxpayer.
compliance. Yeah. Yes, to the customer.
We are transferring it to the purchaser instead of the supplier. right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then the second one was that how do you assure that the supplier has remitted the actual amount that was deducted from you, which you are trying to claim as input?
Not entirely. The second question was that, why do I have to limit? Okay, rather, if I can demonstrate that I have paid over the VAT to the supplier, why do I have to wait until the supplier remits before I can claim it? Because those are two separate transactions. My responsibility as the purchaser is that the law says pay over the VAT on the invoice to the supplier. Once I have done that, I have fulfilled my obligation under the law. So I am entitled to the credit, the VAT. It's an allowable input VAT. I'm entitled to that credit, which I have paid over to the supplier, whom the law has appointed as agent to collect and remit to the FRS. So it links, both questions are linked. So I can now come to say, the law has appointed my supplier to collect the VAT because I need the VAT as the purchaser. I'm the one who needs it.
That's fine. I've had you. Maybe the way I put the understanding that the response is going to be the same. You mentioned something about.
Do you mind if I, sorry, this is Bonjubola. Do you mind if I respond to Mr.
Go ahead.
Kichukwu?
Go ahead, Emoji. Go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, colleagues, and Mr. Kichukwu. Good afternoon. Thanks for the issue you have raised. And you are right. Your duty is to pay input tax at the point of your purchases. And then that supplier had the duty to remit to FRS. So then why do we ask you to now wait until that person has remitted before you can enjoy your credit? Number one, we have recognized that as an issue which we are addressing in the law. Hopefully very soon we'll be able to have relevant amendment to the law. But beyond that, every purchaser who intends to claim input tax also has a duty. Our experience in the service is that there are many input claims that are filed and the suppliers actually do not exist. And we have tons and tons of evidence along that.
Absolutely.
So if it therefore behoves that it is the person claiming input tax who knows the person he has paid to, who can also ensure that that person does not hold on to his money. So it is a dual responsibility. FRS, we have the responsibility, but we can only chase the new persons. We can only go to the new companies, but not when we have documents that have addresses and Google can never trace that address. So these are the challenges we have, sir. But I agree with you. We are doing our best to minimize the pains to everybody, including even ourselves. But for now, this is one of the ways in which we intend to combat this. But if indeed you have paid to a taxpayer, a genuine person who has a TIN and who is real, then of course we cannot shift the responsibility to you. So you can see it's a dual thing, and it also speaks to the level of our development of our environment for the time being. But we are changing the environment, and things are improving. Thank you very much.
Hello, Mr. Bonjubola. Thank you very much for your submissions. But I felt a bit uncomfortable at some point when you said the laws will be changed. So I'm just curious, to be changed that we are now responsible for this. I hope that's not the case anyway. But just to say one thing, I've run out of thoughts, but at the end of the day, we are happy to support the FIRS. And I think it's important that I especially emphasize that. So you can have whatever, maybe laws or whatever, to say that we're going to support you with all efforts necessary in terms of the supplier. I don't know if that's extreme or whatever, but what I'm trying to prove is we are paying these monies out. And what you need from us is that we demonstrate that we have paid. And we're happy to do that, even with this TaxPro Max system. But why then make it such, like, I mean, we can't even move forward. We can't even pay without this. So I'm happy to hear that you're looking into it. Sorry, not to overflow the issue, but just to gain that comfort from your response, to not make it look like, oh, the laws will be tweaked in such a manner as to, you know, not even support Mr. Ikechiku's quote of what the VAT Act says in terms of our responsibilities are just to pay. And instead, maybe if at all there will be more responsibilities on the taxpayer, it will be to support the FIRS to get these monies that they have paid, as opposed to taking back the customer's money. No.
All right, thank you, madam. When I said that we are taking the law, you see, you and I know that taxation is a question of law, and whatever we want to do must be backed by law. What we have today is that people are able, because of absence of direct provisions, are able to take certain shortcuts. And because the current law does not address such shortcuts and also prescribe consequences for such, that's how some of these things are happening. I mean, for example, how do you explain somebody providing you in support of purchases, invoices, and tax officers take those invoices? There are telephone numbers on them, there are addresses on them. Telephone numbers are never working. You can never see those addresses. You get to that address, sometimes it's a church or it's a mosque or is a play field that there's no inhabitant. And so that leaves your mind wondering and say, how come this invoice has come out? So this is what we are talking about, madam. And this is the environment we are in. So addressing such, we also need some bit of legislation to be able to address such a phenomenon. And that's going to rescue genuine taxpayers like you. Because if people can do that and get away because there are no consequences in the law, it is people like you who are paying taxes that are suffering. So this is what we are talking about. Whatever pain we go through now, which of course we are very sorry for that because we never intended that, is also a short one. Is to enable us to address all these issues in a way that we are going to have a level playing ground for every business person. So that's what we are talking about, madam. It's not to put more burden on taxpayers. That's not the intention.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Let me add to MOG, to my colleague's submission. I think either it was Mr. Ikechukwu or Ngozi that said something about you have made these payments, VAT payments. How are you sure what is being remitted to FIRS is the actual amount that had been withheld from you? Well, the system does capture that. For every remittance that we get for any taxpayer, that is indicated as a credit in that taxpayer's account. So when you log into your account, you will see all the remittances that have been made on your behalf by the particular entity that withheld it. So at that point, you even have an opportunity to object, to say, no, the amount that was debited, this is the receipt, was this amount, but what you're seeing being credited to your account as being remitted is this amount. So it's just to give the comfort that we do capture that as credit to the taxpayer. Now, to summarize what MOG was trying to say, the process that we are putting in is not a process of trying to be punitive, as was mentioned by Ikechukwu, to any compliant taxpayer. But if we tell you in summary what the pain of FIRS has been from years as old as FIRS has been, and why what we are doing is just to verify the input VAT claims being made, basically. It's not to cause pain to you in any way, but perhaps you can give us some idea too of how we can actually verify these input claims. For example, some of the things that we found that, and this is in summary, some of the things we have found out from many of the manual verification that we're doing was that 4 supplier teams were being supplied. There are even cases where receipts are being photoshopped. There are cases where multiple claims are being made on the same transactions. And then, of course, there are even cases of expired invoice being submitted. And what is the impact of this on us as a tax administrator? We found out also that some companies that are doing this are claiming back more VAT than they actually should. We have even seen instances where a taxpayer is claiming 100% input VAT. And this was possible because we were using manual process. But now, automating the process is ensuring that we verify this claim before we offer that credit. However, like we said from engaging, if there are other ways that you think it can be done better without it being painful to the taxpayer, but we must verify the claims. We cannot give credit for remittances that we don't have, for money that we don't have, but we are open, and that's why we are continuously improving our process. That's continuous process improvement for us. When we get this feedback, what do we do about it?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chair. Oh, sorry, I wanted to know.
Hi, thank you, madam. I understand, and also thank you, Mr. Bojibola. It's always good to hear from you. I think that commenting on this, while I understand FRS's pain point, it is also important that as taxpayers too, the board also understands where we're coming from. Because whatever taxes are being paid, especially VAT, is a quite sensitive one, because it is something you pay almost on every transaction you conduct. So you've asked, the point essentially I'm trying to make is, we don't want a situation where the technology tools which are supposed to make tax compliance and collection seamless and easy becomes a burden, especially to the taxpayers. There are certain issues that have been raised. People have talked about based on their industry, based on the industry where they operate and how it affects them. So it's important that the FRS looks at this. Now you asked, how do you make these things work? There has been announcements on FRS using automated tax systems or using Sentinel, for example, for the gaming industry, so that they can collect VAT at the point of transaction. There are several other innovations that FRS had announced in the past, which we never saw what happened to it. Now, the update to this VAT filing feature on TaxPro Max, why it is an issue or a big challenge for most of the taxpayers is that we look at it from the point of both as a supplier and as a purchaser. It appears that if I'm the purchaser, I am holding the short end of the stick. If I'm the supplier, everything is home and dry for me. Because here, the supplier may not necessarily have the issues that we're having, especially if you don't have the need to claim input VAT. But as a purchaser, it is something that I need. So every other updates or modifications that should be made or that the FRS is contemplating should be such that would address these concerns, especially because of the impact it has on our cash flow. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much.
Said, like what I said, we are looking at all your concerns, and like the EC also said.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone.
Dick, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Okay, yeah. Let me just thank everybody for attending this webinar. I can see that on participants, we have almost 3,000 participants on this webinar, and hands that have been raised close to 130 hands, about 125 hands raised. What I want to draw attention to is that if we, and so many other questions have also been dropped on the question and answer written, and which can be attended to. I want us to appreciate the fact that FRS have given a window up to midnight, 30th April 2023, for us to do April filing, VAT filing. I think we should seize this opportunity to do the needful and do the necessary filing that is expected for April, the month of April. While all the issues that are being raised are being noted, and I want to also leverage on the point made by my colleague, Amina Ado, that if there are specific issues, specific individual issues, those one can now be addressed on one-on-one in a more detailed platform. This is a general public platform. The presentation that was made that I did, the introductory presentation that was made that took us through the filing process. If there are issues that borders on those process, I think those ones, questions bordering on those process will help to educate the general public than the individual technicality, which many people may not even be able to align themselves to. And what happened? Align themselves to. So please, I want to advise that let's take the option of sending our individual personal technical issue to the service so that we can address them. But on a general note, the process that it took us through on how to do the filing and how to navigate through the TaxPro mass, if there are issues bordering on this one, these are issues that will help every one of us to quickly identify with how to use this TaxPro mass. For now, between now and 30th April, there's no issue of impute VAT claim or this or this. I think all this window have been relaxed to enable us put in our and file our April and make our payments. So let's I'm just giving an advice that will also help everybody, because if we take the 130 questions, the 10 p.m. tonight, we may not even leave this place and other things will suffer. That's just my own contribution and advice at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. The coordinating director, Enforcement Support Group. So we still take more questions, whereby we have displayed the contact center number on the screen. So if you have further questions, you can channel your questions to that number, and those questions shall be addressed appropriately. So we still take for more questions, like 5 questions. Afis Ojelade, are you there? Afis Ojelade, you can talk. If you are there, your hand is up. Afis, are you there?
Good afternoon. I am here, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Go ahead.
I'm audible to everybody, sir. Okay. My question, what I want to advise or chip in is in regards to the process improvement, as mentioned by everybody, sir. Okay, so I'm thinking we are uploading the sales schedule for all the sales made by taxpayers. Why not let us upload the purchase schedule as well? That is, and in the purchase schedule, we mention all the details of our vendors, the name of the vendors, the TIN of the vendor, and the other details of the purchases we have made from, made from them. And the TaxPro Max is going to validate the TIN we are providing in the schedule as well. That is what I'm thinking, and that is what I want to suggest. Because trying to hold taxpayers to ransom until the vendors upload their or make their own filing or their returns is going to impact on the cash flows of the taxpayers, as suggested or as raised by others, and it is a critical point, sir. That's my suggestion, sir.
Thank you very much. I think you have made very good suggestions. Our team have listened, and then we'll see what is doable. Thank you very much. If anybody is talking, we can't hear.
Okay, sorry, sir. Oluwafemi Adetayo, are you there? Oluwafemi Adetayo, can I ask a question? You are muted right away.
Hello.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I want to ask a question pertaining to the VAT withhold, because I'm working in an organization that 80% of our VAT is from federal government processors and also telecommunication. Now, we can't file anything because none of them, as of today, none of them have filed the VAT withheld on the tax promise. So what can we do?
Okay, we will respond to your question at the appropriate time. Do you have Fees or Jelade? Are you there? Okay. What of John Kadri? John Kadri. John Kadri, can you ask your question, please?
Yeah, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, afternoon.
Okay, sorry, I just needed some education. When I read this new guideline, I went to a restaurant.
Go ahead, please. Okay, you're not there, please. Go ahead. We can't hear you. You should take another question. Mr. Yakubu, are you there? Mr. Yakubu.
I'm there. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Go ahead with your question.
All right. My question is this. I don't know. I want to be practical and not on theoretical basis. I look at the act of FRS. The actions of FRS is going against the act. Let me use it that way. There is this memo from the communication company like Airtel that they have been given a kind of power to receive both input and output VAT. That means when you send your invoice to them, they withhold the VAT, they pay the net without the VAT. And when they send you their invoice to you, you pay their 100% with the VAT. So the question I'm asking now, when we are making our VAT submission, we're supposed to pay the net, but now there's no net to pay because everything has been withheld by the communication company. Although we are still disputing that action, because by law, we have the right to deduct VAT or receive VAT from them and remit to FRS. But that is not the case now. FRS give them that special treatment or special recognition to collect both input and output VAT. So we don't know how we are going to do our own filing at our own end. That is the dispute now.
Yeah, sorry. Did you hear my comments on the hospitality industry? I didn't hear any comment from you.
It's not hospitality, it's communication industry.
No, this is John Kadiri talking. I was given the opportunity to speak.
Your question is noted. I will call on the coordinating director, compliance support group, to please respond to those questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues, and thanks for those questions. Actually, I noted two questions here. One from Mr. Olufemi, I hope I'm right. And that's talking about where the person who has withheld VAT is not on TaxPro. And so what is to be done? I think you are still able to file your returns to indicate that your output tax had been withheld and by whom. And part of what actually we also hope you would do is that whichever organization is withholding your VAT, you also need to ginger that organization to do its remittance. But once we have the information from you, we can follow up. We can ensure that that person does the needful and remit so that you can get your credit. And based on what my colleague Cheka had said before, if there's going to be any penalty or whatever, it will not be for your account. It's going to be for the account of the person who had withheld your VAT and had not remitted. So that is the way. It's going to be a combination of both actions from your side and from our own side too. Now, Mr. Yakubu, you say, how do you do your filing? I mean, the TaxPro Max is configured that it's recognized that VAT of some certain companies might have been withheld. So we have in that module opportunity for you to indicate that your output tax had been withheld. And if you have any input tax to claim, you are also able to put your input tax claim. If it throws you into refund position, there are two things that could happen. You could leave your credit there, and so that when you have future VAT liability, and then the system keeps a log of all the credits you have. And if you think that you want a refund, then you request for a refund, and then you will go through the refund process and you'll be refunded. So that your VAT had been, the output VAT tax had been withheld, the system is able to accommodate your returns. I don't know if there's any other question that I've not.
Hello, sir. This is John Kadiri again.
Okay.
Output VAT withheld, there's this line 190 in your form. That line 190 where you are supposed to indicate that your VAT output has been withheld,
yes,
is now not active. Same with the input VAT claim process.
Okay, we know this.
To the question
line
I have
190 is active until the midnight of 30th April.
Yeah,
so between the 1st of May, we will determine approach based on this feedback that we're getting from you. But as we speak, line 190 has been activated.
Thank you. At least we will do that, but for the future, it's something to look at.
The future, we'll be interacting. We've gotten your feedback, then we'll tell you if there's any other workaround. But
Okay,
for the immediate
question,
need, we have listened to you and we have reactivated it.
Ma, there was a question I asked about undocumented and unknown people to ProMass, where some SMEs are getting their inputs to generate business that have output VAT. How are they ever going to be recognized now and in future in the system as the basis of input that I have to claim? For example,
I can say the 10 liters.
I did a business of 100 naira.
I cannot go to bank.
Hello, please. There are so many voices on the channel. If you are not the one permitted to speak, kindly mute your microphone, please.
Yeah,
Shetima, can you mute everyone? Anyone that wants to speak will then unmute themselves.
Okay,
Shetima, please mute everyone. Anyone that wants to speak will unmute themselves.
John Kadiri is speaking. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
I have an input VAT in my restaurant, for example, of 100. And the revenue is based on that. But I had purchased things from the open market in Yaya, in Mararaba, to cook the food that I have sold, worth about 80 naira. And those people are not known to the system. Will I be made to pay the output VAT in whole without recognition of my input that created part of that income? And that is the question I asked before.
That's very simple, Mr. Kadiri, right? By law, the VAT law has set a threshold of 25 million naira for taxpayers to become liable to charge and file withholding tax returns. So if you are purchasing from businesses whose turnover are below that threshold, they can't charge you VAT. And so if they have not charged you VAT, there's no VAT for you to claim. And that is part of, in my response, I said this, we have dual responsibility. So part of your own responsibility to be sure that you are also not paying VAT to persons who ordinarily will not remit the VAT. And part of those businesses are those businesses whose turnover are below the threshold of 25 million, who have not been registered for VAT. And they cannot issue VAT invoice because they are below the threshold. So again, when you are doing your purchasing, you need to take that into consideration. And so you may therefore opt to go and buy from big businesses who have TIN, who have VAT obligation, and then they are going to pay your input tax that you have paid to them, and then you can have your claim. But if you go to Mr. Mojibola and Sons, whose turnover is less than 20 million or 25 million naira in a year, and by law cannot issue VAT invoice, by law is not mandated to remit VAT, you can't turn around to say you want to claim such an amount of money, because by law, that business cannot charge VAT.
Okay, so I think it's something to look at in the overall fiscal policy framework when we say we are encouraging small businesses, SMEs, and this kind of policy is coming, where ultimately the VAT responsibility will be borne at output level by an individual or a small company whose turnover might be more than 25 million that is struggling to create employment in the economy. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kadri, but you can't claim input tax that you have not paid.
Okay, let me also say, for all the persons that have questions, an email address has been provided to you. If you can send your other questions, we'll be issuing a frequently answered question, an FAQ, coming as a result of, as an output from this session, and we'll respond to each of the issues that have been raised. Like my colleague earlier stated, we may not be able to exhaust all the questions on this forum, but it's going to be a continuous engagement. So please help us also as we help you to send in all these questions, any ones that have been addressed, and then we can issue the FAQ to address them. At this point, I do want to say something about the taxpayers in the oil and gas sector that have not been filing. Or MOG, do you want to do that?
Okay, what's the specific issue so I can address,
on the oil and gas sector that have not been filing.
Oh, okay. If they have transactions, they are supposed to file, and I'm aware that we have not been having problem with their filing. But are we looking at those who have withheld VAT because they also have obligation to withhold VAT?
Yes.
Okay, then
that's what she's saying. Those that withheld VAT.
Oh, okay. Then don't worry. We'll use our tax officers to reach out to them.
All right.
Yeah, we'll get talking to them. I will speak with the director of in charge of oil and gas immediately now.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, sir.
So can we come to an end for this session? Like I stated, it's ongoing. If there's any further questions that we have, we can send it in. We'll appreciate, and we'll do an FAQ that will publish on our website for all to see what has been asked and what the response have been and what's going forward is as well.
Thank you very much. We want to thank all our participants for today's webinar. I know the session has been very engaging. And we have our contact center flyer there, and the number is there. If you have any question, or you can even call our contact center, and most of your concerns will be addressed. And at the same time, you can send all your questions to the mail that we provided, and at the appropriate time, we will respond to this. I want to appreciate you once more again. So thank you once sincerely for sparing your time to be with us today. And we hope when else we call you, you will be with us. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a bye-bye from us, and thank you all for attending.
You want to say something?
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.